Hello and welcome to a thing, and today I'm going to ask and answer the question, what's so great about Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller? Let's find out! Okay, so I kind of missed the boat on the Song of Achilles when it came out about 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, that's why I'm holding the 10th anniversary edition. And I'm glad I missed the boat because that meant I got to buy this guilt-free without already having like a Kindle or paperback or whatever. Anyway, I did about 2 or 3 years ago read Cersei when it came out, and I thought Cersei was alright. It was fine. But it also came out the exact same year that Pat Barker brought out The Silence of the Girls, and I thought Silence of the Girls was tackling a very similar topic, same time period, ancient Greece, gods, history, feminism, mythology, and it did it better. In fact, I did a whole video on that back when I didn't really have a channel. Anyway, I thought Cersei was fine, but I really enjoyed Song of Achilles. Before I read Song of Achilles, I read Cersei, and then I kept getting told by friends and book bloggers and other humans that, okay, Cersei isn't great, not everyone loved Cersei, it's only okay, but trust me, Song of Achilles is really great. You'll love Song of Achilles. It's way, way, way better than Cersei. And it is. Song of Achilles is way, way, way better than Cersei. But again, I still liked Cersei. I just didn't love it. So what's so special about Song of Achilles? First of all, Song of Achilles started off this age that we're in right now of retelling Greek myths and legends and stories from ancient Greece, ancient Rome, etc. There are a lot of these books. I don't know how many I can list off the top of my head, let's try. So you've got The Song of Achilles and Cersei, Pat Barker's The Silence of the Girls and the Women of Troy, The Wolf Den just came out, I can't remember who it's by, I want to read that. Thousand Ships by Natalie Haynes, Pandora's Jar, did she also write that? But I think that's like a non-fiction. And then all those Stephen Fry ones, Mythos and Heroes, etc. There are a lot of books on Greek mythology right now, but this is kind of where it all started. In the last 10 years since this book came out, we can't get enough of them apparently. And that's great, this one's brilliant. So what's it about? The Song of Achilles tells the story of Achilles, but it does so from the perspective of his lover, best friend, brother-in-arms, etc., Patroclus. It begins with the story of Patroclus, who was a prince of a place, and then he was banished for basically just being a bit shit. He gets banished very, very quickly. He ends up on an island, and he's one of many orphans that live on this island and are kind of adopted into this big, big family, and Achilles is the son of this family, and he's the actual son of this family, but the king, who is Achilles' father, had him with a water nymph who is a god, and she did the whole dip him in the river Styx thing so he'd be immortal. We all know who Achilles was. This is the story of Achilles and Patroclus' relationship first and foremost. That's what all of this is about. If you read the introduction, which is new to this 10th anniversary edition, it's a really good, really short, like 4-page introduction where Madeline Miller explains that she was a student of classics and she was annoyed at how much of the gayness of the story of Achilles and Patroclus was removed as the world became more Christian, conservative, and homophobic. And she wanted to inject that back in. She said that when this story was originally being told, it was gay as hell. In fact, I'm just going to read straight from the foreword, which is so good. She said, I was about to graduate with my classics degree and begin my master's, and I was already working on my thesis on a topic that had long frustrated me. The way that modern scholarship discussed the relationship between Achilles and Patroclus, labeling them good friends. I'd read Plato's Symposium, where Achilles and Patroclus are described not just as lovers, but the ideal romantic relationship. I knew that interpreting Achilles and Patroclus' relationship as romantic was a very old idea, and I was angry at the way homophobia was erasing it as a possibility. So she wanted to do a thesis on it, but then she realized that she had too much to say, and so her thesis became a novel, and that novel is The Song of Achilles. And this is really two novels. The Song of Achilles is split into two halves. The first half is, as I said, the story of Patroclus. It's his childhood, I was going to say exorcism. What's the word I'm looking for? Expulsion? Exile. That's it. Exile. I think I already said it. His exile from his home and how he ends up within the household of Achilles and his father. Achilles is destined by the fates themselves to be the greatest Greek warrior ever, But in the first half of the novel, he's a teenager growing up with Patroclus by his side, and it's that Holmes and Watson thing where the story is clearly about Holmes but told by Watson. It's the same thing. This is the Song of Achilles, but it's being told to us in the first person by his best friend turned lover, Patroclus. And in the first half of the story, you've got their relationship blossoming, them growing as individuals, Achilles growing as a soldier, Patroclus learning healing, and the two of them becoming lovers. And the first sex scene of the book happens around page 100, and it is fiery hot. It is one of the sexiest things I have ever read in a book. In fact, at the very end of that chapter where the first sex scene, there's actually a quote from it on the back of the book here because it's so good. And she wrote, "We were like gods at the dawning of the world, and our joy was so bright we could see nothing else but the other." Oh my god, it's so sexy. It is gorgeous. It really is. Like, Madeline Miller took that idea of them being the ideal romantic relationship and she ran with it. Until you get to the second half. And the second half is about Helen of Troy being kidnapped, the face that launched 1,000 ships, the war between Greece and Troy, and Achilles and Patroclus go to Troy to retrieve Helen, and you see a lot of other Greek heroes along the way, and a lot of other Greek heroes get mentioned along the way as well. In fact, you see or hear about so many, it makes you think about how many of these mythological and legendary warriors and heroes of ancient Greece all must have existed within the same 100-year time span. It's almost ridiculous. You know, you've got Philoctetes and Hercules, or Heracles. Odysseus is in it, and Odysseus plays a few roles, if you like. He comes and goes throughout the story. He's at the very beginning, and he's more in the second half as well. I love the depiction of Odysseus in this story. I think he is so interestingly written, and I almost don't really want to talk about it. I really need you to check it out. I don't think the way that he's depicted in this novel is talked about. He's really cool. He's got this... No, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk... Read the book. Odysseus is great in this story. Paris and Hector. You've got Hector, the guy that Achilles is destined to kill, and Paris, who's the person who's destined to kill Achilles. This is a very old story. I'm not spoiling it. You know how it's going to end. It's old. I've just been in London. I just got back on the train. I am not thinking clearly at all. I can't remember anything, and I'm not very smart anyway. Anyway, what was I saying? I think the point was there's a lot of heroes of legend here, and they are all lined up in this book. They're all seen or talked about, and so it makes you feel like ancient Greece only existed for 100 years. Or at least that's when all the interesting stuff happened. Because they're either alive all together at the same time, or they were just a generation gone and talked about a lot by people who knew them or vaguely remember them. Anyway, the war between Greece and Troy is covered in the second half of the novel, and it's really well executed in terms of the fact that we are blending and balancing genuinely well done action scenes with very interpersonal stories of strong character relationships. Patroclus and Achilles remain center stage, but the two of them are at loggerheads sometimes. They fight, they argue, they're upset with each other. They have been in love for several years leading up to the war, and then the war goes on for 10 years with them just living in this camp in Troy. For about 10 years, just slowly inching their way closer, getting into battles, and it's a long war. All the while, you've just got these slight political and war-related bits of progress being made, and the story of Patroclus and Achilles' relationship remains at the heart of it all. And balancing that war, which is slow, with a relationship that is stagnating because of its situation, but also is still fiery hot and interesting, is a really tough thing for Madeline Miller to do, and she doesn't shy away from it. She doesn't think, oh, is this getting a bit long, or have I not fleshed this out enough? The balance is perfect in terms of its pacing, its tone, its length, everything. It's meaty, and it remains exactly as long or short as it needs to be in terms of fleshing out the characters and also the politics and the events that are going on. I really enjoyed that. I thought she's got this balance really down pat, and I value pacing and length in a novel so much. I think it's so important to deliver what you want to deliver without overstaying your welcome, and this novel is a perfect length in that regard. And rather than it being in a sort of 3 or 5 act structure, it really feels like it's just 2 novels. You've got part 1, the story of Patroclus and Achilles as young men falling in love, and you've got the Trojan War with Greece invading and the prophecy of Achilles being Greece's greatest soldier, killer of Hector, killed by Paris, all of that slowly coming true. And we know it's coming true because this is the oldest story, but it feels like Patroclus and Achilles also know it's coming true. I mean, they do know it's coming true, and it's interesting how they're wrangling with their fate while knowing that that fate is there and cannot be changed, or they assume it can't be changed. So you've got how they're going to handle their own personal mortality and the existence of their relationship. The only thing that I called into question was the fact that their relationship is secret all the way through the story, when I don't know if it would have been such a shameful relationship at the time, but Madeline Miller is a classicist and I'm not going to question how she delivers their relationship because I don't know as much as she does about this stuff at all. So, to summarize, the relationship between Patroclus and Achilles is the most important thing here, and it is flawlessly executed. The sex is fiery, the relationship is dynamic and layered and textured. The fight scenes and the battles and the scars emotionally and mentally that the battle and the war leave on these men is really, really well done in terms of its emotional weight and the choices of actions and dialogue that you see from these characters as they're going through war. I loved that. I really loved the way that this Greek-Trojan War was handled. I also like how Hector, in the second half, is basically a phantom. He doesn't speak. He's barely seen. He's a ghost on the battlefield. He's a ghost, a thing in the distance, a thing that is haunting Achilles' mind and Achilles' future, his fate. Hector is this greater than life sort of a thing. He is imposing, he is dangerous, and he is unknowable. I literally, while I was reading this, in my mind's eye, I pictured him as a shadow. That's how I saw Hector all the way through the story. Every time he's mentioned, I was literally imagining a silhouette of a person. And I think that that's such an impactful thing for Madeline Miller to manage to accomplish, blended with my own personal reading and imagination, I guess. The Song of Achilles really is as good as people say, and I'm so relieved because I really thought that Cersei was only okay, and so I couldn't imagine why people seem to love the Song of Achilles so much. But it's gay as hell, it's sexy as hell, it's really aggressive and hypermasculine, but in a fun way because it's gay. Yeah, the Song of Achilles is really as good as everyone says. And also this version is absolutely stunning. So if you haven't read it yet and you can get this 10th anniversary hardcover, please do. I did, and I'm glad I did. Subscribe for books.